doesn't want peace. President Trump addressed this today after learning of Zelensky's comments about peace being, quote, very, very far off.
And now we're here. I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
So what did Zelensky do after he was kicked out of the White House on Friday, after his disastrous performance? Well, he runs to Europe, goes to Great Britain, tries to make a deal with them, and they all fawn over Zelensky, sending out all kinds of tweets. We stand with you, Mr. President. They fawn over this guy, as you can see here in the video. Well, the reality is all the European leaders says, yeah, we love you, but without the United States, we can't do much. And there's a real possibility that President Trump is now going to declare no more money for Ukraine coming from the United States.
It takes two to tango, and you're going to have to make a deal with Russia, and you're going to have to make a deal with Ukraine. You're going to have the assent, and you're going to have the consent from the European nations, because I think that's important, and from us. I think everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It can be made very fast. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long.
Well, that, of course, he's talking about Vladimir Zelensky. If that person doesn't want to make a deal, he won't be around very long, which means he may just well be pushed out of his leadership position in Ukraine. I think the people of Ukraine want the war to end. I think the people of Russia want the war to end. I think Putin wants the war to end. But here's the reality right now. And I would warn President Trump, I'm not sure I trust these European nations and their leaders. We're now getting word from Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who was just on this program on Friday, that apparently Great Britain had entered a deal with Ukraine for these rare earth minerals on January 17th, 3 days before President Trump was sworn into office. How are you making deals behind the United States back? I think actually Trump figured this out. Here's Tony Shaffer.
This is on the British-UK website. It talks about this 100-year Ukraine and UK signed a 100-year deal,
right,
over security guarantees and economic development. So what happened is that I believe President Trump and his team found out that they were being played. So this has become a set of dueling narratives.
You're not going to play President Trump, Zelensky. And here's the reality. You can't bring two girls to the dance, Great Britain and the United States, especially when the United States would happen to be the homecoming queen. So put Great Britain aside, put your ego aside, put your quest to enrich yourself, and I'm convinced Zelensky has that quest in mind, already doing it. Put all that aside and sit down and make a deal. But let's go through how we got to this point, because I actually think that the Obama-Biden regime had a plot for World War III. They wanted the expansion of NATO going all the way back to Barack Obama. Obama was the one who was pushing many of these nations on the border with Russia to join NATO. Now, Russia was pushing back hard against that. Ends up going into Crimea for what? Not just because they wanted to take land, but because Ukraine was working with Obama to put a U.S. naval base down on the Black Sea in Crimea. Well, Russia couldn't be without a port in the southern area of its landmass, so it went in and took Crimea. Now, that's because Ukraine was threatening to join NATO, the United States, put missiles in neighboring nations. Nobody wants that. Even though it's not 1987, we could park nuclear submarines off the coast of Russia if we wanted to. But just as you wouldn't have missiles in Canada on behalf of Russia pointed at us, or Mexico, we would go hog wild. Russia did too. So I believe once President Trump got out of office, Vladimir Putin said, you know what, I'll force Zelensky's hand to give up this NATO nonsense, will invade 7 days into the invasion, and I bet the mainstream media has never told you this. 7 days into the invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin offered up a deal to Zelensky. Go to neutrality. Do not join NATO. You do that, we'll sign a treaty, we'll go with a ceasefire, war over. What do you think Zelensky did? He turned it down. Why do you think Zelensky turned it down? Zelensky turned it down because Victoria Nuland, part of the State Department, Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, went to Zelensky and told him to turn it down. The Biden regime promised all kinds of money. See, they wanted World War III, I believe it. They're neocons. They wanted to do away with American society and ultimately push the entire globe into this globalist one world order nonsense. So that's how we got to this point. They wanted NATO expansion. Here's the Prime Minister of Great Britain just over the weekend sucking up to Zelensky, offering up boots on the ground there. The United States isn't going to do this.
Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing. We're working with the US on this point after my meeting with President Trump last week. And let me be clear, we agree with the President on the urgent need for a durable peace.
I'm going to tell you something right now. I don't trust that man, and I don't trust Zelensky. And I think Zelensky's trying to play both sides here, and President Trump and his team is not going to fall for it. This jig is up, folks. And it was up, I believe, 45 minutes before the media was called into the Oval Office on Friday when it all went south, because we get this from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
And the fact was Zelensky never stopped asking for, I will give no concessions. They've got to leave my land. I want reparations of $300 billion. And I want the United States to give me security guarantees while they're at war with Russia. And that's why the president called it World War III. You're gambling with World War III. We're not going to give you security guarantees while you're at war with Russia. It's just ridiculous. His requests were ridiculous.
You want to know what the security guarantee is? It's having the United States inside Ukraine with this rare earth minerals deal. You're going to have engineers, miners, business people, bankers, all inside Ukraine. Putin's not going to mess with that. But Zelensky, I believe, actually is too focused on himself, enriching himself, as well as the other Ukrainian oligarchs. And by the way, I'm getting word these Ukrainians are now visiting the Swiss Alps, spending $1 million a weekend. Where's the money coming from? It's coming from all of you folks, the taxpayer of the United States. So one last time to show you why President Trump got so mad at Zelensky and how it went down.
And your people are very brave, but you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
You got to be grateful. And Zelensky's not. He's a greedy grifter, okay? Joining me now, retired Green Beret, Lieutenant Colonel and former intelligence for the Department of Defense, Ivan Ranklin is with us. Colonel, it's great to have you back on the program. Good to see you.
Good to be back, Grant.
All right, let me ask you a question. Where do you think the United States goes from here? What's the conversations happening inside the White House today, do you believe?
I mean, I think the main point that people need to understand here is that the American, like you said just a couple minutes ago, the American people are the ones that are funding and flipping the bill for not only Ukraine and the grift that they're stealing from the American tax dollar, but that's also going back, and I have had my team look at this in detail, looking at FEC records, et cetera. A lot of that money also comes back to not only 10% for the big guy, but also to Republican and Democrat PACs of the established order. And keep in mind that remember Biden on his way out did his pardons. They go back to 2014. There's a reason why it goes back to 2014, because he's admitting to the crimes of the Biden criminal syndicate. That's when the initial Vice President Biden was the point man for Obama as it applies to Ukraine. So the reason why I know a little bit more maybe than most is that I spent some time on the Ukraine crisis team in the Pentagon in 2014 as I observed some of these maneuvers taking place. And again, I have to stress that as the decision-making process is being made in the White House on how they move forward, there needs to be further detailed investigations into looking into all the financial transactions of the Biden criminal syndicate, and that'll showcase why these decisions are being made by not only Zelensky, but the broader Democrat Party, because as well as the Republican establishment. Remember that Zelensky met with quite a few senators of both political parties before he stepped foot in the White House on Friday. They were basically telling him, here are your cards against President Trump, and then if the deal breaks through, we'll have your back. And immediately over the weekend, you saw those meetings take place between Zelensky.
You said something in the beginning that I wanna drill down on. Do you believe that United States taxpayer money, upwards of $350 billion, that's gone to Ukraine, Zelensky says he doesn't know where half of it is, that's his admission, is going and being funneled back to Democrat PACs, Democrat lawmakers, possibly Republican establishment types? You think and Biden as well, you think some of this money's being funneled back to them?
Well, let's go step one by one. So when he says 50 or 40% is unknown where it is because it goes into Zelensky's pockets as well as all the oligarchs and the entire system within the government of Ukraine. Next up, when you follow the money and kind of reverse engineer where the PAC money comes from, let's go back to remember when FTX was being invested by Ukrainian dollars that came from the American Treasury. So when you step through where that FTX money went, you have Ryan Salome, who's the number 2 guy at FTX, was sending money over to Republican PACs, whether it was McConnell or McCarthy. And then when you look at the CEO of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, a lot of people reported on the right and the conservative media that he ended up donating to Democrat leadership and PACs. But what many people didn't look into, which I and my team did, was the number 2 guy at FTX was the one that was donating to Republican PACs. And that's why really it was a slap on the wrist for the whole FTX debacle. So, I mean, this stinks to high heaven across both political parties, and that's why you're seeing such massive pushback across, whether it's rejecting Pam Bondi's attempt at the Epstein files, whether it's this deal with Ukraine. I mean, everybody is making money hand over fist, and they're leveraged against each other through this financial, fraudulent, criminal enterprise. And that's why Elon Musk, when he was on Rogan last week, he's concerned for his safety because he has seen, probably through Twitter holdings and then the other Doge activity that's going on over the last few weeks, he sees and knows the entire criminal enterprise, and he's concerned for his life if he's going to expose it all. I suspect that it's time for everyone to kind of chip in and start to expose it all.
I was just going to bring up that Joe Rogan interview of Elon Musk. He said, quote, I know how these lawmakers are enriching themselves. And let's face it, some of these lawmakers on $180,000 a year now have multi-million-dollar net worth, 10, 20, 30, $40 million in net worth.
I wonder how he knows.
He says,
Grant,
I know where they're getting it. And it goes,
the...
his quote, hold on one second, Colonel. His quote was, it goes beyond insider trading. And so this could all lead back to Ukraine. I'll give you the last word in about 30 seconds if you can, Colonel.
Yeah, I think it goes way beyond the insider trading. It goes into, like, again, Twitter was purchased, and all those communications between FBI criminal actors that ended up being senior employees at Twitter, I'm sure there's communications that Elon Musk has uncovered, what I used to pen and call the mother of all Twitter files. I suspect that he's concerned with releasing all of it because the legitimacy of our all of our institutions going back probably, decades is going to be exposed. And then where are we at? I mean, there's literally an illegitimate failed state here in America.
It's amazing. Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Raiklin, it's so great to have you on. Great insight into all of this that, again, nobody wants to talk about or admit, but of course we will here on this program, thanks to you as well. I appreciate you coming on, Ivan. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got that situation, which we'll continue to cover. There's another situation which the mainstream media doesn't want to really talk about either. It's still this quiet war that continues on cops. So I've told you before, the war on cops is not over. Black Lives Matter may be silent. Maybe that's because USAID can't fund the Black Lives Matter movement anymore because Trump shut it all down, Antifa as well. But I want to give you an example of absolute leftist lunacy. There was a knife-wielding lunatic in Boston over the weekend who was threatening to kill everyone in the Chick-fil-A. Well, an off-duty cop turned out to be a total hero. Tries to reason with this guy, tries to disarm him. The guy refuses to drop the knife after the cop says, "Put down the knife, sir." Cop, off-duty, saves everybody in the restaurant as far as I'm concerned, shoots and kills the knife-wielding lunatic. How does the mayor of Boston respond? Leftist lunacy to the max. Listen to this.
My condolences and all of our thoughts are with the family of the individual whose life has been lost.
Condolences to the family of the knife-wielding lunatic who was going to try to kill Bostonians? These people are nuts, folks. But that's a wink and a nod that we don't like cops. Oh, she commended the actions of the off-duty officer. She's got to do that publicly. But what she's saying there is this cop never should kill the criminal. We love criminals. These Democrats are nuts, folks. Joining me now, co-founder of the organization Blue Lives Matter, Joseph Imperatrice is with us. Joe, it's great to see you. Welcome back.
Great for always having me, Grant.
All right, so what goes through your mind when you hear her say, our thoughts and prayers go out to the knife-wielding lunatic?
I know cops are definitely dismayed by that. Here it is, one of their own off-duty. Could have walked away, could have been a coward, and yet he took police action off-duty to be able to save lives. What individuals like that mayor don't understand that this is what leads to protest and unrest against police officers. This is when the loony bins and the activists come out and burn down cities, all because of the actions of a politician standing on a soapbox. This has to end. It's getting old. Please start voting in people with common sense to end this lunacy.
All right, so I hate to frustrate you even more, Joe, but I'm going to play for you another clip because it's not just the mayor. It turns out the district attorney, who's supposed to prosecute criminals, not offer up prayers for them when they're killed in the actions of trying to kill innocent people, and the police commissioner of Boston. Watch this, Joe.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of the individual who's been lost.
So our condolences go to the individual who was killed tonight.
Joseph, do they mean this? Or are they just trying to save their jobs and trying to suck up to the mayor? I mean, do they really believe this?
They're following suit, and don't get me wrong, any life lost is a tragedy, but you can't condone it. You have to say we cannot allow this to happen on our city streets. Maybe say we need more help for the mentally ill. Maybe say we had a brave police officer that took police action off duty to save lives. But we don't need to go down that rabbit hole of almost praising the person that could have caused harm to so many other people.
What does it do to cops on the street, putting their lives on the line every day, to hear the police commissioner? Look, I expect it from dopey liberal mayors, but the police commissioner and the district attorney, what do cops say to themselves when they hear that?
It confuses them because God forbid it went the other way. They're going to think, would that person in that power have gone after me? Would my job have been in jeopardy if the video looked differently? If I made a mistake and that guy didn't have a weapon, would they have fried me? So, the executives, and I said it before, all over in law enforcement, have to be careful, just like the officers in uniform need to be careful on what they say to the public, because you don't want to make it think or seem that these officers are doing anything wrong when they're actually going out there and doing the right thing.
Sometimes I worry more for cops in liberal cities like that with radical district attorneys. I think they're more in danger from the DAs oftentimes than they are from dangerous criminals. Most of your guys and gals on the NYPD and in Boston and my city, Dallas, all of these cities, they can handle themselves with these goons. It's the DAs, man. They're the ones that'll send you to prison for 15, 20 years.
Grant, I say it all the time. Sheriffs, DAs, they should not be elected based upon their political affiliation. You have to enact the law as is impartially. So that's a thing of the past. But once again, when I first started almost 20 years ago, no matter what side of the aisle those district attorneys were on, when an officer went out there and put handcuffs on people, they were pretty confident that the bad guy was going to be held behind bars. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's a complete opposite.
Yeah, those days are over. I think this may be the first time I disagree with Joseph Imperatrice. I think just elect Republicans into office and you'll be fine in every city across America. That's my idea. Joe, I'm not even really kidding. I'd say I kind of am, but not so much. Buddy, it's always great to see you. I appreciate you, and a big thumbs up to all the guys and gals you work with out there.
Yes, sir. I thank you very, very much. God bless.
Absolutely. Right back at you. 2 salutes I got today. How about that? 2 Patriots, 2 salutes. Can't beat it. All right, folks, listen to me. You don't buy a life jacket as the boat sinks or gold after an economic crash. Gold hit record highs in early 2025, but it's not too late for you. Birch Gold can help you to diversify into physical gold. They convert IRAs or 401ks into tax-sheltered gold IRAs for no money out of pocket. So here's what you do. Text America to the number 989898 for a free gold info kit. There's no obligation. With an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold can secure your future with gold. Again, text America to the number 989898 for your free info kit on gold. All right, coming up next, folks, the Mexican government is now taking action to protect cartels from Trump. That's right. Despite stories saying they are complying with demands. Maybe a propaganda war that Mexico is engaging in. That's next.